We are live once again with another one, continuing in the series of Hidden in Plain Sight. Continuing on in the series of Hidden in Plain Sight. So with the last two, we basically touched on what is called the quote-unquote old world buildings. And I went through quite a few in both the first and the second part, particularly in Home Team. In New York City, in the Bronx, to show the evidence of these same old world buildings and the exact architecture that we see across the planet with these same type of structures, these same type of buildings. So if you live in any particular areas within the US or abroad, or if you just go search online, you'll find these buildings. They're everywhere, all over the planet. Excuse me. All over the planet Earth, you will find these buildings. And again, everything thus far since the starting of this lane, if I could call it that, since I started this to where we at right now, everything ties together. It's a big puzzle and the pieces are being put together. If you follow along, soon the picture will be painted very clearly. So today, continuing on in the series, part 3, Hidden in Plain Sight. And the question that's being asked is this nature? That's the question I'm asking. From what I'm going to present today, what you will witness and see with your own eyes, I am asking, is it nature? Is this nature? Because a lot of things I'm going to show you, people will try to pass off with the excuse of this is quote unquote Mother Nature. And we're going to go through quite a few things that's hidden in plain sight. And you let me know whether or not it's nature or if it's something else. Again, I am not the first to present this information. There are a lot of people out here that are searching and digging and researching and presenting all sorts of information on all levels. And they all surprisingly correlate biblically. We're going to get to that one day. If you continue to watch and check out the channel and see the pieces of the puzzle that's being presented, we eventually are going to get to that. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to present the information. Again, I'm not the first. There's other people that have presented this. This is mostly for people that are not aware or that may have heard and never really went deep into it. So what I'm providing is, I guess, surface level information that will lead people to go and do their due diligence and search themselves and investigate themselves. Because it's a lot of lies that are being spewed all over the net, all over all forms of information. So you got to dig and sift through and see what's official and what's not. So we're going to commence now. This is from the National Park Service, quote unquote government site. You can look this up. The largest trees in the world. The largest trees in the world. So let's go through this and hopefully you see this. If not, praise God. If you do see it, praise God. If you don't, praise God, you have your liberty. All I'm doing is presenting the information. That's all I'm doing. All I'm doing is presenting the information. So, again, the largest trees in the world. The largest trees in the world. Let me get this for you. One second. All right. The mid-Sierra zone, 5,000 to 8,000 feet, or 1,524 to 2,438 meters, creates ideal conditions for giant sequoia growth. So I'm assuming this is above sea level. Mild winter and summer temperatures, deep winter snowpack, and a rich fire history have made it possible for the world's largest trees to get its biggest in these parks. Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks boast many of the world's largest trees by volume. The General Sherman tree is the largest in the world at 52,508 cubic feet. That's 1,487 cubic meters. The General Grant tree is the second largest at 46,608 cubic feet, or 1,320 cubic meters. So giant trees. Giant trees. Where am I going with this? I'm going to show you. Just stick with me, and I'm going to show you where I'm going with this. Okay. And again, this is from quote unquote governmental site. So here we have some of the trees and how tall they are. The General Sherman is 274 feet and 9 inches. 274 feet and 9 inches, a tree. The General Grant is 268 feet tall, and so forth. You see what's presented: 270, 268. These are enormous trees. Enormous. Right? These are some very big trees. Just showing some more measurements. Again, this is from their site. The Monroe tree is 247 feet. The Robert E. Lee tree is 254. It's a tree that's unnamed, that's 273 feet. The Euclid is 272. These are rather big trees. Very large trees. let's continue on. Just a couple more. This one, the heart tree, is 277 feet tall. The heart tree. The diamond is 286 feet tall. Where am I going with this? Just let me present this and I'll explain. I just want to show these trees and their heights for a reason. Okay, typically a standard story of a building, a standard story is 10 to 12 feet. But this can differ for commercial and residential buildings. So it gives you, this is something that I found, and it allows you to go and calculate feet to stories to paint a picture. But again, standard, typically a story is 10 to 12 feet. All right. So when you see these buildings, when you see these, these trees, that are, when you see these trees in this forest, in these different forest areas, you're gonna get an idea, and then we'll get to exactly where I'm going with this. Just be patient. If you're here, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. Saturday night, the weather's starting to get good. You could be anywhere else, but you chose to be here to slide through or to stay for the time, for the duration, and I appreciate you. So we see the standard of a building. So now you look at some of these buildings, some of these trees, I keep saying buildings. You look at some of these trees, and based upon the standard of feet to stories, these trees range from 25 to 50 stories. Very, very tall trees. Some would say giant trees. Right? Some would actually say giant trees. These are some big trees. Where am I going with this? Don't worry, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Now, you might not get the full concept yet of how big these trees are. And this is in this time. This is in this time. This is not, I don't want to jump the gun, but this is not from thousands of years ago. This is in this time that these trees are this big. Let's continue. Let's continue. So you can see by this how big these trees are. We got two youth standing in front of the tree at the base. Right? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Funny you brought up that winch. That winch that's in the water is not a winch, something else, but that's another topic for another day. Again, look how big and massive these trees are. That's a person walking between them. These are some very large trees. Very large. The trees are immense. That's one of hundreds of trees that are like that. It's tall, right? Okay. Let's move on to the next one. That's a little bit wider, a lot more for you to see and how big these trees are. These are massive, right? Still wondering what I'm getting at. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Be patient. So this is the stump of one of these trees after it's been cut down. Now you tell me by looking at that, would you have known that's a stump, or would you have thought that he was standing on some type of rock or stone? Let me know in the comments, or whoever's here in the chat right now. Would you have known that was a stump if I told you, or would have thought that he was standing on some type of stone or rocks? Let's get the next one. Here's another one. Well, you can see a piece of the tree cut And look how sharp and how precise that cut is. And you see a person believed to be a female standing on another stump. You have some stairs to the right to actually get up to the stump. Okay. There goes a couple standing in front of a stump. Look at how flat and how sharp the cut is to that tree. Sharp. Right? Let's move on. Now, let me ask you, looking at this is what's called a mesa. And there's a few all over the planet. Now, looking at that, right? Looking at that and looking at let me get it. Looking at that and then looking at this, are you looking at nature? Was this formed by nature and erosion and wind and water and rained and more wind and more rain? And is this nature? Or are you looking at a more giant tree stump? Again, I'm just presenting the information. If you believe, praise God. If you don't, praise God, you have your liberty. Everything that I've been presenting against since the start here has been one piece to the next, one piece to the next, and everything adds up and it all correlates one with another. So do you see rock or a tree stump? Petrified wood which is a tree stump that looks like it's actually quote unquote earth. And people say that this was done by nature. Let's continue on. I got a lot. I have quite a few. Here's another one. This is in Oregon. Supposedly, this is nature. Water and erosion and wind, and this is nature, supposedly. Or are you looking at another tree stump with a perfect cut? Someone or something cut this down perfectly. Do you see what I see? If you don't hesitate. But if you do, say so. Speak on it. I have more. This is in Guyana. Again, it's supposed to be nature. Supposed to be a rock. Something happened with water and so forth and so on. This was once a giant tree. Again, everything that I go through and I've been presenting by the grace of God, it correlates with the scriptures. We know there were giants in the earth at one point. We know there was giants in the earth from what transpired between the fallen angels leaving their first estate to indulge in the flesh, and through them giants were born. And these were not regular giants. These were titans. They were gigantic. Some hundreds of feet tall. Everything was much bigger in the beginning. People, animals, everything. It speaks of two Israelite men having to carry a cluster of grapes on both their shoulders. Now you can go to the supermarket and pick up a cluster of grapes with your hand. A child can pick up a cluster of grapes with their hand. So everything was much larger. And in time, everything decreased. But there was a reason and a purpose behind these trees, these giant trees being cut down. And it all goes back to the flood. It all goes back to the flood. I'm going to continue. All right. This is in Malta. What do you see? Do you see a stone or do you see a cut tree? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat, those that's here. What do you see? Wood can absolutely be petrified, which means to turn to stone or rock. So are we looking at rock or are we looking at a cut down tree? You have your liberty to say whatever you think it is. Me, I believe it's a giant tree that was cut down. This is a famous one in Wyoming. It's called Devil's Tower. And you can look and see that looks like a cut down tree. You tell me if that's not what you see. Everyone, again, has their liberty. If you believe, praise God. If you don't, praise God. You have your liberty. All I'm doing is presenting the information. That's all I'm doing. Is that a cut tree? Or is it stone? There we have another shot of it. What do you see? Ironically, surrounded by a whole bunch of baby trees. Ironically, we live in a realm, in a world where we've been so lied to and so deceived that the truth, as they say, is stranger than fiction. Yeah, it does. It's petrified. Right? Just a quick search, just to share it. Wood can become petrified if it is buried quickly under mud, silt, or volcanic ash before any rotting can set in. Petrified wood forms when trees that died so-called millions of years ago fell and became covered in mud, sand, and water. So this is what they say in regards to wood being petrified millions of years ago. Right. So that's another angle of it. Let's continue on. I got a few, quite a few. Okay. different areas across the country and across the planet. Okay. Give me a second. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, this is the Luna Mesa in Utah. Now, some of these also, as we go on, you're going to see that they were other things other than trees. And you'll see that as we go on. Now tell me, by looking at this, is this stone or is it a cut down tree? Was this nature? And as always, some that I don't have names for or that I don't mention, I will leave in the description the name of it and the location. This one, I believe, is it's in South America. But again, I'll have the locations and everything in the description. Sorry. Yeah, they're all over the planet. They're everywhere. Something happened. All right, so like I said, some of these things that are petrified, some of these things that are petrified were not only giant trees. They were not only giant trees. This portion right now, what I'm gonna go into, I hate to sound cliche, but you have to have your glasses on to see these. Yeah, there was giant trees. Everything was colossal. So let's see if you see what I see. Now, if you look at it, you'll think it's a mountain. It does look like a mountain, you know, if you just look at it. But if you really look at it, it looks like somebody's laying down. To the top left, you see the head, and then you see the shoulder, then you see the curve like a fetal. Is it me? Am I bugging out? I'm seeing things. I got plenty more with this. This is a mountain called the Sleeping Giant. It's in Peru. All right. Let's go on. This is a quote unquote rock formation. Or is it? Or is it? Let me know what you see. Let's continue on. Something happened. Something happened. We know the flood happened. But there's been other things that have happened as well. Now, is this a mountain? Is this a rock formation? Or could that have been a sphinx? I don't know. What do you see? Maybe it could have been an animal. Weather doesn't create the shape of people or animals or just straight flat surfaces that look like they were razor cut. Rain and wind, and that doesn't do that. Some people will say this is nature. These are real places. This is real. What do you see? What do you see? Some would see just some rocks. What do you see? If you really, well, yeah, definitely that was that one. What do you see here? Everything was greater. Everything was bigger. Everything. What do you see here? The history and understanding of this realm and the past is magnificent. And again, as they say, the truth is stranger than fiction. It's like a movie. It's like fantasy, sci-fi. Can't believe that. What do you see inside that rock? What do you see? some male standing next to it so you can see how big. What is that imprint in the rock? That male standing there lets you know how big that imprint is. It's definitely it's a footprint. And for anybody that's not convinced, could look at that one. Maybe that one's a little bit more convincing. What do you see? All right. Got a few more. What do you see here? Remember, everything that's petrified is not just trees. Some things also can be melted. Structures can be melted. And be left to look like it's natural. What do you see there? And this is in America, by the way. That's the whole thing. Yep, absolutely. Let's use simple logic. A lot of people wonder, how do you find structures that are on the other side, the so-called other side of the earth, and then you find those very same structures in the Americas, and not just the Americas, anywhere on the planet? I'm gonna get to a few more. What we have documented biblically we have written that as evidence for those that stake claim to the Bible. There's evidence in there of navies of ships. It tells you Solomon had a navy of ships. With all the wisdom that was bestowed upon Solomon, you mean to tell me he didn't know how to navigate, or where the best of the best was at? like gold of Ophir. And sending his men out all over to travel and get these things, spices, all kind of things. Coming to different lands and setting up areas in a time of peace during his reign. So from what's written, that would definitely make sense of finding any of that influence on this side of the world. While you find things that's so-called quote unquote Hebrew or Jewish or Egyptian, all the structures were the same. The architecture is the same. Again, it's the same architecture and wisdom of architecture that was given to Solomon with the building of the temple and his own house. If you read the story and you read it, you'll see the description of the house and of the temple, and is reminiscent to all these old world structures. It's not Greco-Roman architecture. So a lot of those structures too, they were melted. They're in areas now that's desert. And in process of time, they seem to look like something other than what they once were. What do you see there? Do you see a hill? Do you see a hill? And can you guess where this is at? That is one of the world's largest pyramids that is in Bosnia. Underneath all that grass is a pyramid. You can see the perfect lines to the triangle. You can see them. Well, maybe you can't. Maybe you don't see them. If you see them, praise God. If you don't, praise God. You have your liberty. That's in Bosnia. Praise God. Praise God. That's another angle of it. Bosnia. Got a few more. We're going to wrap it up. Anybody know where this is at? It is said that these are hills. That's what's said. These are hills. And they formed like this over 1 million years. Anybody know where this is at? Say these are hills. There's a whole bunch of these type of hills in this picture. The two giant ones in the front, and then the ones to the right and the left, and looks like a whole city of these hills. Anybody know where this is at? It's in China. China. China, brother. China. All I did was put the yellow line to it so you can see exactly what's there. Unless you don't see what I see. Do you see it? Do you see it? It's a whole city of them. They're all, even the ones in the back. Our whole existence. Our whole existence is a lie. We've been severely lied to. Reality is twisted. And there's been super deception. That's in China. Why do they lie to us? Why does the educational system lie to us? Let me see where this is from. Give me a second. This is also in China. This is in China. That's obvious. This is clear as day, obvious, with nothing covering. Praise God, man. That's all I'm doing, sharing information. Free of charge. Free of charge. Only thing that has a fee is the music. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, sharing of information is free of charge. That's China. Okay. This is also China. China's a big country. Unless you have the financial freedom to travel the world, the only way you can see or learn about other countries is searching on the net. But if you have the financial freedom to do that and travel and document, take pictures of different things, who knows what you would see or what you would discover. Places you wouldn't imagine. Just like with the old world buildings, there was a lot of those in Japan. There's a lot of those in China as well, all over the planet. And this is proof. All right. This is Guatemala. This is Guatemala. All over the planet. Pyramids. Old world buildings that are now Supreme Courts or court buildings. Old world buildings that are now high schools or universities that were once palaces. Old world buildings that are called churches or cathedrals, but were something else and used for something else. With free electricity. Let's move on. Got two more. And this is in Indonesia. So rain and wind and bad weather for millions of years, allegedly, made these perfect angles to form a pyramid. Right. This is the last one. Just some illustrations of pyramids. You've seen some of them with what I presented. So, what do you see? What do you see? So again, hidden in plain sight, is this nature? Is the question. Was that really nature? Or was it something else? Might have a couple more things with this topic, and then I might spin back and continue on with some of the other ones, especially in regards to the idolatry. And don't worry, if you continue watching, you're going to see how everything plays and it'll all make sense. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. Like, comment, share, pass it on, tell a friend to tell a friend. Again, the information I'm presenting, or that I've presented so far, should I say, is not new information. It's not my information. This is information that's out here already. There's a lot of people, men and women, that are on it, that are searching. So we'll continue on next week. By the grace of God, again, thanks for tuning in. Much love, peace, and Godspeed. As always, it's God time. Peace.